Got it.
All right. So good morning to everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on wherever you are joining us from. And welcome to our discussion on the SEVP COVID-19 guidelines for incoming students. Before we begin the program formally, I want to remind you, please make sure you keep your microphones muted. Please make sure you keep your video cameras shut off. That helps with the streaming quality. You will be able to ask questions using the chat functionality as we proceed through the program. My name is Ron Cushing. I'm Director of International Services. We welcome you all to the University of Cincinnati, and we certainly hope to see you all on campus very soon. But given the COVID-19 issues, that may not always be possible, and we're going to cover all of those issues during this session. So here's how the session is going to work. First, myself and some colleagues are going to go through some slides about what this COVID-19 guidance means to you, how and if you're going to be able to come to campus. We are then going to address some frequently asked questions that we've already received ahead of time from many of you once the guidance came out. And then we are going to go through some of your chat questions to wrap up the program. So, that is how the program is going to work. So this program will be recorded. It will be posted on our website. It'll take us a couple of days after we record it to get it posted, but it will be there for future reference if you need it. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and begin our program. We want to first begin by telling all of you that we stand in strongest opposition to this recent policy. We are working with our peer institutions in Ohio and across the country, as well as with our legislators to get ICE to change their stance on this policy. International students are absolutely critical to the mission of the University of Cincinnati and the success of the United States. We're going to do everything we can to advocate for you and to help you manage your way through your program of study and this pandemic. So we wanted to first make that statement for you. Now, the reason we are all on the line is because last Monday, July 6th, the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, or SEVP, put out new guidance for fall semester enrollment. And with it comes changes and relief measures that are going to be put in place for institutions based on how we say we are going to conduct our instruction for the fall. And basically it falls into three very distinct categories. Institutions are either going to be fully online, fully in person, or what they call a hybrid, a mix of in-person and online course offerings. And the University of Cincinnati is absolutely going to be using the hybrid instructional format. So that is the regulations in this guidance that we are going to be focused on during this meeting. So let's go ahead and look at what this guidance means to students. The first thing is, in order to enter the United States, the University of Cincinnati must certify that to the SEVP that your program of study is not entirely online. Full-time for undergraduate students means 12 credit hours. Full-time for graduate students means 10 credit hours. And students cannot enroll in only online classes and enter the United States. There we go. Sorry about that, little technical difficulties. Upon arrival, students will be allowed to take more than one class or 3 credit hours of online courses to meet the full course load requirement. During normal circumstances, when there's not a pandemic, international students can only take one online course towards meeting their full-time enrollment requirement. But during the pandemic, SEVP is going to waive that. They only have to take at least one or more course that we consider to be in person in order for you to come. And so what that means at the University of Cincinnati is that your course should be coded in the Catalyst system as either it can't be coded as either entirely online or mostly distant. It needs to be classified as in person or partially distance. Your college advisors or your departmental advisors will help you navigate that to get to your one class. Now, we have a special population of students among our undergraduate students primarily. These are students that are in our, what we call the Pathway program. The SEVP considers Pathway program students to be engaged in English language training. And so for those of you who are in our Pathway program, you are not exempted under the new language from the SEVP. In other words, you are going to have to be enrolled in at least 12 credit hours of in-person or partial distance learning courses in order to come to the U.S. And our staff in the Pathway Program Office out of International Admissions will certainly be working with you all who are able to get here to make sure that that is, in fact, what you're able to enroll for. Now, let's talk about what the University of Cincinnati is doing to ensure that you can come and engage in what we're going to be able to deem to be an in-person program. So up until last week, many of our programs were absolutely planning on being completely online. But now we are going to ensure that all students who are able to come will have at least one in-person or partial distance learning course to enroll for this fall. Colleges are currently working out those options, and some of them may not have that option specifically identified for you today. But between now and when classes begin, they certainly will. So if you were previously communicated with that your program was going to be online for the fall, we will, if you're able to get your visa stamp and enter by August 24th, we will ensure that you have at least one online or one in-person or partially distance learning course to enroll for. So keep that in mind. So we will make sure that everybody who wants and is able to come will be able to meet this new guideline. Now, many of you are going to need new I-20s if you are able to come. So if you are able to enter the United States and enroll for fall semester, we are going to have to issue you an I-20 that indicates you are not going to be enrolled in all online courses. To be issued a new I-20 with the appropriate statement annotated in the remarks section, you must either already be in the United States, meaning you're coming to us from another institution already on F1 status, or you have somehow during all of this been able to already obtain a visa stamp for entry into the United States. Maybe you got an appointment before things shut down. Maybe you were in the US previously on an F1 visa and you have one that's not expired. Or you must document to us that your visa appointment will be no later than August 10th. And so if any of you meet that criteria, we're going to issue you a new I-20 that puts in the remarks section the statement that is being mandated by this new regulation. So that means you have to help us figure out that you are a student who is going to need one of these new I-20s. We certainly will not be issuing I-20s across the board to everybody. We need to make sure that you're either going to have a visa or you already have a visa before we do that. So anyone who is already in the US or has a valid visa stamp and is able to arrive by August 24th must do two things. The first thing you must do is send an email to us at international.students@uc.edu requesting a new I-20. Once you do that, we will check our pre-arrival checklist, and specifically we're going to be looking at tab number 5 to make sure you have uploaded us a copy of your F1 visa stamp. Again, we've issued well over 1,000 I-20s for this fall, and we're not going to be reissuing over 1,000 I-20s. We are only going to do it for the people we know are going to get here. And so we're going to want to see that you've completed the pre-arrival checklist and uploaded your visa stamp. Then upon arrival, and again, if you're already here, you can do this now, you will finish that particular tab by uploading to us a copy of your I-94 card. And you'll use our iBearcats global system and the pre-arrival checklist to make sure you've done what you need to. And when you arrive, you download your I-94 card at the appropriate site. There we go. Now, when you go to our pre-arrival checklist, this is what you're going to see. And those of you who've been completing this all along, you know, this should look familiar to you. But at tab 5 is immigration review. And the first thing you're going to have to do is provide us with your mandatory personal information. And then the second box, immigration document upload. That's where you're uploading to us copies of your passport, and more importantly, in this case, copies of your visa. Again, we are going to want to see that you have your visa stamp if you're saying you already have a visa and can enter. So make sure if you haven't gotten this far in the pre-arrival checklist that you do so in the next couple of days. Now, for anyone who is not in the US, but who is able to secure a visa appointment by August 10th, you must send an email to international.students@uc.edu requesting a new I-20. For graduate students in our College of Engineering and Applied Science, they do have a plan, and they've been developing this over the summer and communicating with the students. At the graduate level only, for some of their students, they have an option where some students can arrive by October 12th. And so if you fall into that pot and you've declared to them that that is the case, then you would be able to submit that to us as well. Now, when sending the email to us saying you have a visa appointment, we will want to see the proof that you have scheduled your visa appointment. Again, what we're trying to do is avoid issuing, you know, thousands of unnecessary I-20s. If you don't have a visa appointment and you can't get one in time, we're not going to be issuing you a new I-20 at this point. We will issue you one later if you decide to come for spring semester. Now, there are current visa and travel restrictions in place that can complicate all of this. The first is, as of today, consulates and embassies are still closed. However, just yesterday, they did announce that they are going to be resuming operations as early as July 15th, but it is going to be a phased-in approach that varies by country. So some countries are having a more difficult time with COVID-19 than others. And so not all embassies are reopening tomorrow, and not all embassies are going to be reopening at full staff. It's too soon for us to know when most visa appointments will be scheduled. Our inclination is that most visa appointments at this point are not going to be scheduled until after fall semester starts. But classes start at UC on August 24th. Your visa would have to be issued in time for you to not only arrive by the 24th, but when you arrive, because you're coming from overseas, you have to self-quarantine for 14 days before you will be allowed to come to campus. So, and also keep in mind, your visa stamp is not put into your passport the day of your visa appointment. So if you have a visa appointment that is scheduled for October or August 1st, that doesn't mean you're going to walk out of the embassy with the visa stamp in your passport on August 1st. So you've got to keep all of those things in mind. One thing we do want to stress is late arrivals are not possible. So if you can't get here by the 24th, and More importantly, if you can't get here in time to self-quarantine for 14 days before the 24th of August, then we're going to need to talk about either studying online for the fall or deferring your admission to the spring. Now, in addition, there are currently many countries that are on a travel restriction list. There are over 30 of them. And so if you are residing in one of those countries, you need to make sure that your country is not on that list. If it is, if you've been in that country for any part of the last 14 days, you will not be allowed to enter the United States. The list of those countries can be found on UC's website at our COVID-19 public health FAQ section. So if you're not clear if your country is on that travel ban list, make sure that you review the documents to make sure. There we go. So in addition, once you arrive in Cincinnati, you would need to self-quarantine for 14 days. So what that means is you have got to make sure, and if you would, a lot of people are asking to, to annotate and, connect to this. Please stop making those requests. We will be posting this again on our website. So it'll stop popping up on the screen there. Thank you. So not only do you got to have a visa, and you got to make sure that you're not from a country that already has a 14-day bar, but once you arrive, you're going to have to self-quarantine for 14 days before you can come to campus. So what that means is, if for any reason you are not able to physically get here by August 10th, or in the case of some of our College of Engineering students, the last week of September, that means you're not going to be able to start classes as designated on the 24th. And that means you should be planning to take classes online or deferring to the next semester. Now, from a UC standpoint, it is absolutely perfectly fine to enroll online from overseas if you're not able to obtain your visa to get here in time, or if you just decide, because of all the uncertainty and the safety, that you just rather study from home, your home country for fall semester. That is perfectly fine with us, and we certainly encourage you to think about that option. If that is your choice, we will issue you a new I-20 for spring semester accordingly. But again, that means you will be registered this fall. And once you register, we can issue you a new I-20 to hopefully arrive in the fall. Now, those who choose not to enroll online from overseas in the fall, but want to come spring semester, you must contact your admitting department. So if you're a graduate student, how it works is the departments make the admission decision. So if you decide you don't want to come at all fall, but you want to come for spring, you need to contact that program to see if that's something they are going to allow. If you are an undergraduate student, you need to contact the International Admissions Office and ask for a deferral of your admission to spring semester. Once fall semester starts and we see who all has asked for deferrals and been approved, we will then start issuing I-20s later this fall. We are not going to start issuing I-20s en masse for spring yet. However, if a couple of you, now that some embassies are opening, get an early appointment for sometime in early September, certainly let us know that, and we'll make sure that you get the I-20 that you need. So keep all of that in mind. Now, at this point, we want to take a brief interlude here, and we want to ask you a couple of questions. And so one of my staff members here is going to take over, and we are going to do a poll on a couple of questions. So we ask for you to participate in that. Lauren, you want to take over?
Yes, absolutely. Give me 1 second. I'm getting a bit of a lag on this, but that's just because there's so many lovely people on this on this webinar with us. So give me 1 second. And all right, to change something over. And what you will see shortly is we are going to share our same PowerPoint that we had just a moment ago. And what we're going to do is we're going to send a poll to your right directly to your screen. So this is going to be a yes or a no question, and it's going to match the exact same question that you see on your screen. So when this comes up, if you'll take a moment, we are going to give you about 1 minute to answer this question, and after that we will close. So you should see something open on your screen just now with a yes or no question. Responses are coming in hot and fast, Ron.
That's what we like to hear.
Mm-hmm. We've got about 70% of the participants who have completed. Let's see if we can get that to 100. If not 100, that's okay. And we've got 20 seconds left on the poll. And we've got about, great. So we are waiting another few seconds just for that to come through. And again, that should be done in about the next 10 seconds, so bear with us. Fantastic. All righty. And we're getting requests to annotate, so please hold those for just a moment. And okay, so now we're going to start a, give me 1 moment, again, the lag. We're going to start a new question. If you guys, same system, if you don't mind answering this. This will be for the next screen that's on here. And do you plan to defer your admission to spring? I've accidentally let this one open for 5 minutes. We will not be doing 5 minutes. We will be doing just a minute.
Okay.
Yep, it looks like we've got about 78% of people who have filled out the polls, so we will close the poll, and that will take just about another 15 seconds to finalize and close that poll, Ron.
Okay.
All right. And we have done it.
All right.
So thank you to everyone who has submitted their poll results. We really appreciate it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand the power right back over to Ron. So Ron, if you will give me just 1 second as I transfer that back to you, you should be good to go.
All right. So you should all see the PowerPoint back. All right. Now we are going to get into a few frequently asked questions that we've already gotten ahead of time from students. And the first one involves scholarships. And will there be new scholarships available to international students because of COVID-19. And to answer this question, we're going to bring in one of our colleagues, Dr. John Weller, who's the Director of International Admissions, and he's going to provide some details about a special scholarship program called Bearcats Everywhere. So John, are you on the line?
I'm here.
Great.
All right, thank you. And I'll try to make this kind of complicated scholarship as easy to understand as possible. There's a lot of words on this slide here, but the general summary of the Bearcat Everywhere Scholarship is that this is a one-time scholarship for fall. It's available to undergraduate and graduate students who are studying full-time or part-time. The intended audience for the scholarship is students that are outside the US that are unable to join campus on time this fall, and therefore are spending the fall semester taking online courses outside the US. Usually that would be at home with their parents, but it could be anywhere else in the world, basically. In order to receive the Bearcat Everywhere Scholarship, there is an application that will be launching hopefully in the next few days. Students should have started receiving some messages from either International Admissions. If you're an undergraduate student, graduate students will likely start receiving messages from their graduate departments in the next week or so. But the application should be launching in the next few days. It should be a pretty simple application. Some of the main questions are going to be things like, where are you? Where will you be spending fall semester? Things like that. While you're waiting for the application, if you are an incoming student, the best thing that you can do is finish. If you're an incoming undergraduate student, the best thing that you can do is finish the Bearcat Bound Orientation Canvas course. There's a pre-registration survey there where you fill out questions about things that you're interested in studying. If an academic advisor has been contacting you, some advisors are contacting students, trying to help them register for classes already. Make sure you're responding to those emails and working with your advisors to register for courses. If you have already completed the Bearcat Bound orientation process, or you're a current student, even though this session is targeted for incoming students, the next best thing you can do is register for classes. If you're registering for classes and you have the application completed and approved, those are the students that will start seeing the scholarship hit their bill first. So I think we can go on to the next slide. So the next slide will try to explain this. The goal of the Bearcat Everywhere Scholarship, as I mentioned, is to ensure that students who are outside the US that cannot enter the US by the start of fall semester and will be taking online courses while they're physically studying outside the US, will pay the equivalent of in-state tuition. There's a lot of terms that students use about in-state tuition or international tuition. The terminology you'll see on your bill is the tuition is called the instructional fee. So for this fall, the instructional fee for incoming students will be listed on your bill, and the non-resident surcharge. The non-resident surcharge is a fancy way of saying the extra fee that we charge out-of-state students. Out-of-state students and international students have the same non-resident surcharge, but the surcharge varies by what type of student you are and where you're studying. So if you're a graduate student in business, your non-resident surcharge is different than if you're an undergraduate student in business. Or if you're a student in Blue Ash, your non-resident surcharge is different than if you're studying on the Uptown campus. The slide here, there's many different scenarios to this. This slide is trying to summarize how the process will work. The Bearcat Everywhere Scholarship is what we call a last dollar in scholarship. And what that means is that when all of your other scholarship awards are applied to your bill, If you still owe money towards the non-resident surcharge, then the Bearcat Everywhere Scholarship will be added to you to set whatever you owe. In this first example, you have a students.
Your mic is breaking up a little bit, John.
As a $500 scholarship package. That means that the $5,167 left towards their non-resident surcharge, and that amount would be covered by the Bearcat Everywhere Scholarship. If you look at the Blue Ash example, the non-resident surcharge is $4,399. That student has a smaller scholarship. So the Bearcat Everywhere Scholarship is $3,399. Student who's on Claremont campus, but had offer from UC, the Bearcat Everywhere Scholarship will be your full non-resident surcharge just for the fall semester. So we have a pretty good understanding at the undergraduate level. This works primarily with undergraduate students. So we've begun graduate students, like I mentioned, the graduate department should start contacting those students in the next week or so.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. And Dr. Weller will be sticking around to help answer questions at the end about admissions and the scholarships, especially for undergraduate students. So now let's move on to another frequently asked question that we've received a lot of the last week or so. And this one says, if I'm unable to arrive for fall semester, but I'm able to come spring semester, how will that impact my ability to engage in optional or curricular practical training? So in order to engage in what's called OPT or CPT, you must complete one full academic year of study in the US or 30 weeks of instruction. So delaying your arrival by one semester should not impact an undergraduate international student at all. Those admitted to co-op programs, you won't begin your co-op until at least spring semester of year 2. And so really it's going to be a non-issue for you. For some graduate students, this could be a question depending on your program. Things get a little bit more complex. So our spring and summer semesters are only 28 weeks total. And so that means unless arrangements can be made, and we're exploring what options might be able to be made here to add 2 additional weeks in some cases, it would mean that you would not be eligible to start your CPT until week 3 of fall semester. And for some programs at the graduate level with capstone requirements and those kinds of things, that could get a little bit tricky and problematic. Now, another question. According to the return to campus plan, UC will be offering a hybrid mix of instruction until Thanksgiving. Then we'll finish the remainder of the semester online. Does the new SEVP guidance mean I must return home at Thanksgiving? Certainly you can choose to return home at Thanksgiving this fall if you choose. There are many parts of this guidance that are still sort of unclear, and this is one of them. So more guidance will be provided at a later point, and I'll tell you where we're going to keep things updated on that momentarily. Another big question we're getting is, will my student health insurance policy cover my medical expenses if I contract COVID-19? So the first thing we want you to know is that all costs associated with needing to get a COVID-19 waiver will be covered by the insurance policy, the test itself. Then if you need treatment for COVID-19, COVID-19 is like any other accident or illness. So you pay based on what the circumstances of the student health insurance plan is in place for you at that time. So there's deductibles and out-of-pocket things that have to be met. And COVID-19 would be like any other injury or illness, and you would pay accordingly. If you're interested in learning more about what the student health insurance policy covers, what your out-of-pocket costs might be, the link will be on this slide when we post it to our website. Now, I want to stress that everything we talked about today is subject to change. It's what we believe are in place at the moment, but SEVP can put out further guidance. UC or the state of Ohio can change, how we're going to do things. There are currently some lawsuits that are in place, and in fact, today a court is going to be hearing a couple of lawsuits from Harvard and MIT on this. And there's lots of advocacy going on nationwide with our legislators about this guidance. There's lots of people, lots of challenges where all of this could change, and we will certainly keep you up to date on our COVID-19 website. If you just go to the UC homepage, right at the top, you're always going to see the link to the COVID-19 updates, and then there's a frequently asked question for international students. We are currently working on getting that revised for all of this, and we hope to have everything revised and posted in a couple of days. But as you can imagine, it's quite substantial, takes a little bit of time and approvals. We will get that posted as quickly as we can, but sometime this week you will see these updates posted at the COVID-19 site. So when you go to the site, you'll see an FAQ on the right-hand side of the screen. And then when you click on that, you will see international students, and you can click on that and see that. And again, all the things we've just talked about, we're going to get posted on that site as soon as we can. Certainly it will happen, sometime this week. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over to you all and the questions that we have been receiving in chat. We've been trying to answer some of those, typing right back to you, but I'm going to have one of our programming staff here, Lauren Steinman, jump in. You've already heard from her earlier with the surveys, and she's going to try to summarize some of the questions we've been getting. And based on your question, either myself or John Weller will respond accordingly. So Lauren, you want to jump in here?
Thank you, Ron, and thank you to Lori and Sarah who have been in the chat answering a lot of the questions in real time. We really appreciate all your efforts for that. This first question is going to be for John Weller. So John, if you can prepare, unmute, put your video camera back on for us. There have been some questions about is this Bearcat scholarship applicable to all semesters or only one semester, and when will the scholarship open?
So the scholarship is only available for the fall semester. The application we are hoping will open by the end of this week. It is being built and will be managed by a different office than my office. So I can't guarantee exactly when they're going to open it, but I believe they were shooting for a goal by the end of this week. Once it's open, international admissions will definitely be communicating with undergraduate students to let them know. And we're working with that office on how to spread that message very widely. The goal is to let as many people know as quickly as possible when it's open.
Absolutely. And John, this is for you as well. Can you elaborate on the resident and non-resident surcharge?
So on your student bill, there's a fee called the instructional fee, and that is essentially in-state tuition. So every student you see, whether they're from Ohio or outside Ohio, will have the same instructional fee. If you're an out-of-state student or an international student, you have a unique fee called the non-resident surcharge. That is essentially the out-of-state extra fee that out-of-state students pay to attend our public university. So the non-resident or the Bearcat Everywhere Scholarships goal is to offset any fees that students are paying towards that non-res surcharge. For some students, that will be $0. So if you have scholarships currently that exceed the cost of the non-res surcharge. So if you're an incoming international undergraduate student and you have a scholarship package from UC valued at $16,000 per year or more, you will not receive a Bearcat Everywhere scholarship because your current scholarship package gets you down to in-state or less than in-state tuition already. If you're a incoming undergraduate international student who has 0 scholarships from UC, then you'll get, and you're on the main campus, you'll get a large Bearcat Everywhere scholarship just for the fall.
Wonderful. And just to confirm, if you have any other scholarships, this will kind of take place of whatever those scholarships don't cover. Is that correct?
That's correct. They call that a last dollar in scholarship. And that means that we apply all other scholarships first. And if there's anything left over that needs to be put in to offset the rest of that non-resident surcharge, and that's where the Bearcat Everywhere scholarship will come in.
Fabulous. Well, I'm going to hold questions for you, John. So I'm going to switch over to Ron for a little bit here. Thank you for that. And Ron, there was just a couple of questions about the I-20 process. Again, just for some clarification. For example, if I've already paid the SEVS fee and been issued the I-20 form, but I'll study online, do I need to pay the SEVS fee twice and have an I-20 reissued?
No, well, you will have to have an I-20 reissued to come in the spring. So your I-20 right now has an August 24th, 2020 start date. You cannot use that I-20 to either apply for your visa stamp or to enter the U.S. in January. We will have to issue you a new one with our January start date for spring semester, which will be January 11th. But your SEVS number will not change, and you will not have to pay the SEVS fee again. You keep that number as long as your record remains in initial or active status. So you will get a new I-20, but the SEVS number will not change.
Fantastic. Is it possible for everyone to apply for a delayed arrival? And what's that process again?
It is not possible for everyone to apply for a delayed arrival. So the only college that made arrangements for late arrivals is the College of Engineering and Applied Science. And they only did that for certain graduate students. And they've communicated with those students, several of which I expect are on this call. Nobody else can have a delayed arrival. And here's where I want to be very clear on this. If you can't arrive and complete your quarantine before August 24th, you need to start thinking about what your plan for the fall will be in terms of either studying online and coming into spring or deferring to the spring outright. We will not be allowing late arrivals. This is a very complicated process to try to manage. And there are a lot of challenges. And I'll be upfront. The reality of this is most of you probably are not going to be able to get here by August 24th. Most of you, even if you're a College of Engineering student, will likely not be able to get here by October 12th. And so, you know, that is the reality. Now, the good news is yesterday they did announce that embassies are going to start reopening tomorrow. But again, that's going to be a phased in approach. In some countries, those embassies aren't going to open at all. And we're going to rely on you to communicate with us what you're able to get. I can't tell you tomorrow what kind of visa appointment you're going to be able to get in Beijing. Maybe it's not going to be till late October, November, or even later. The point is, you have to tell us. So you know now that the embassies are going to start reopening. You need to monitor that, get into the visa appointment process as quickly as you can, and then communicate with us what that visa appointment date is so we can issue you a new I-20 for spring semester if necessary, or we know that we can start hopefully planning on your arrival for fall semester. But again, my inclination would be to tell all of you, if you don't already have a visa stamp in your passport, the likelihood is you're not going to make it for fall semester regardless.
Thank you. And then, so for those students who are not in that situation, for students who have gotten their visa, they have their I-20, they've paid their SEVIS fee. For those students who do have their visa, they do need to obtain an updated I-20 that will be sent to them electronically. Is that correct?
That is correct. And so there's new language that we have to put in the remarks section of all I-20s that essentially says that you are coming to engage in what we consider to be an in-person program, that you will not be engaging fully in online study. And so if you already have a visa stamp in your passport and you're planning on coming, follow those instructions. Again, you're going to send us an email. You're going to make sure that you've uploaded your visa stamp as part of the pre-arrival checklist. If you don't have a visa stamp yet, but you are fortunate enough to get an appointment early enough to arrive to satisfy the 14-day quarantine period and start classes on the 24th, then we're going to want you to email us your visa appointment notice, and then we will issue you the I-20.
Fabulous, thank you. And can you go into just a little bit more detail about the Thanksgiving break for students who are able to make it for fall semester? If UC is considering having in-person classes after Thanksgiving, or can students stay? We know that we're not going to have in-person classes after Thanksgiving, so can students stay in the US after Thanksgiving?
So again, UC after the Thanksgiving break is going to finish the last 2 weeks of the study or of the semester online. And at this point, we are going to be putting out guidance later once we get full clarification on that. Again, this guidance has only been out for a week. There's lots of debate about what it says and what it doesn't say. And on this particular point, for schools that have announced they're going to be hybrid, but have some online components put into that hybrid semester, there's some clarification we need to obtain on how that affects you, and we will put that out as soon as we get it.
And Ron, a worst case scenario situation is that if the backlogs at the embassies to get the visas are pretty long and they cannot obtain their visa for spring semester, what does that look like? What should they do?
Well, it would pretty much be the same process here. So obviously you would work with your programs on an online course or full slate of courses for the spring, if that's what you would like. Or if you're deferring and you can't get here outright, then likely what you're looking at is having to defer to the fall semester.
Fantastic. And Sarah O'Connell is doing a great job in here, kind of reiterating some of the points that we've made earlier. So thank you, Sarah. This has been really great information. I think I haven't seen any really new questions. So is there anything else that you'd like to summarize, Ron, before
what we'll tell you is, obviously you have questions, please make sure you email us. And let me make clear what you email us questions about. So we issue the I-20s, we deal with the visas and all immigration questions. So when you have questions about that, you email us at international.students@uc.edu. If you have questions about your program, your courses being deferred, getting enrolled for all online, if that's what you're going to do, at the graduate level, you need to make sure you contact your graduate program. And at the undergraduate level, contact the International Admissions Office. Now, beyond that, what I'll say is we thank you for joining us today. We certainly hope that we see you, if not this fall, this spring on campus. Please take the appropriate actions so we can issue those who need the I-20s, their I-20s. And, we hope everybody stays safe and healthy. And again, we look forward to seeing you on campus sometime soon. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. And real quick, John Weller, did you need to say anything? Do you want to say anything in closing?
No, I mean, I think, as Ron mentioned, a lot of these things are recent announcements that came out. So we know people are nervous, but if you could be patient with us, I can tell you that UC is working around the clock, and Ron in particular has been very busy. And I know he's worked all weekend on this, and we really are trying to get things resolved as quickly as possible for our students. I will say one other thing for students, at least for undergraduate students that are thinking about deferring. You can, if you contact International Admissions, we can share some more information with you. In general, it is always best for undergrads to start in the fall. There are some consequences with deferring about courses not being offered at the right times that can lead to students having to take extra courses or taking longer to graduate. So we'll try to explain that in email and as we communicate with students, but that was something that you would want to talk with an advisor about before you decide to defer as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you for your compliments in the chat section. There's a lot of love to Ronnie.
Can we ask some questions here?
We are not going to be, it could get very crazy opening up the mics for individual questions. And so what we're asking is,
sure.
If you haven't asked it on chat and we haven't explained it to us, to you fully, send an email to the appropriate unit and we will respond.
Yeah, okay, sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
And thank you to the question asker. So yes, I've posted the email addresses that Ron gave us earlier into the chat section for you to copy, but you should probably already have those emails. So thank you, everybody, for attending today. We deeply appreciate it. This recording, this webinar has been recorded. We will be posting it on all of our platforms, social media, and website once it renders, which usually takes about 24 hours. So thank you so much to everybody.
Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you.